Picture this: you were the kid who finished tests first. Teachers called you brilliant. Everyone said you'd go places. You sailed through school while classmates struggled. You were special. You were smart. So why are you now lying in bed at 2 a.m., scrolling through TikTok, feeling completely lost? Why does every opportunity feel overwhelming? Why do you feel like you're watching everyone else live their dreams while your expectations paralyze you? Here's the kicker: adults with high IQ scores report significantly higher rates of loneliness and depression. The very trait that made you feel superior might be the exact thing trapping you today. In the next 30 seconds, you'll find out if you're in the same psychological trap that's keeping millions of former gifted kids stuck. Before we dive into these 4 life-changing insights, I want you to do something that could save years of your life. If you've ever felt like your intelligence became a prison instead of a gift, hit that subscribe button right now for the Psyche Weave. We're building a community of former gifted kids who are tired of being stuck and ready to actually use their brilliance to create the life they deserve. And if this opening already has you feeling seen and understood, smash that like button. It tells YouTube to show this to other people who desperately need to hear this message. Your engagement helps rescue other brilliant people from the isolation trap. Now let's get into exactly how this trap works and, more importantly, how to escape it. Here's what we are covering: 4 psychological traps that turn intelligence into a prison, plus 4 research-backed solutions that actually work. First, the identity trap that makes every challenge feel like a threat. Second, shadow psychology that turns you into your own worst enemy. Third, perfectionism paralyses instead of motivates. Fourth, social withdrawal disguised as intellectual superiority. Then I'll show you the exact 4-step roadmap thousands of people have used to break free and finally start thriving. Smash that like button right now so other burnt-out gifted kids can finally see this. If you've ever Googled former gifted kid burnout, this video is for you. Let's dive in. The first trap is the most fundamental. You built your entire identity around being the smart one. When you're young, this feels amazing. Teachers praise you, parents beam with pride, other kids look up to you. Most of that praise wasn't actually for being intelligent. It was for effortless success. You get praised when things come easily, when you solve problems quickly, when you understand concepts on the first try. Over time, your brain internalized a toxic equation. If I'm smart, things should be easy. And the flip side, if something is hard, I must not be smart. Carol Dweck calls this a fixed mindset. Research shows kids praised for being smart actually perform worse when faced with challenges. So what happens when life gets hard? Your first real academic challenge, your first job rejection, your first relationship failure. Your brain doesn't see this as normal learning. It sees evidence that maybe you're not as smart as everyone thought. Sound familiar? Comment, relate. If you've ever avoided applying for something because you didn't meet 100% of the qualifications. The result, you start avoiding anything that might expose you as not that smart. You don't raise your hand unless you're certain. You don't try new hobbies because you might be bad at them. Your life starts shrinking. While everyone else is experimenting, failing, learning, and growing, you're trapped in an increasingly narrow comfort zone. This brings us to trap number 2, straight from Carl Jung, the battle between your persona and your shadow. Your persona is the mask you wear, the smart kid persona. It gets approval, feels safe, maintains your social position. But every persona has a shadow. Your shadow contains everything you've rejected about yourself, your fears of being stupid, your moments of confusion, your tendency to procrastinate. Here's the kicker: the shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. Maybe you get irrationally angry when someone makes a mistake you've made yourself. Maybe you judge people for being lazy when really you're terrified of your own procrastination. Jung called this projection, seeing in others what you can't accept in yourself. Pause and think, is there someone whose mistakes really trigger you? That's probably your shadow talking. The shadow also shows up as that voice whispering, "You're a fraud," every time you succeed, or the part that sabotages opportunities because deep down you don't believe you deserve them. Here's the cruel irony: by trying to maintain your smart persona, you're actually limiting your intelligence. Real intelligence requires curiosity, which means admitting you don't know something. It requires experimentation, which means risking failure. When your self-worth depends on appearing effortlessly intelligent, you cut yourself off from the very experiences that would actually make you smarter. Trap number 3 is where things get really sneaky: perfectionism and intellectualization. These sound like good things, right? Who doesn't want to do their best work? But for former gifted kids, they become sophisticated forms of self-sabotage. Research distinguishes between 2 types: perfectionistic strivings, which can be healthy, and perfectionistic concerns, which are linked to anxiety and depression. Perfectionistic concerns look like spending 3 hours writing a 2-sentence email because you need the perfect words. It has dozens of half-finished projects because none meet your impossible standards. How many of you have a graveyard of 90% complete projects? Type graveyard in the comments. The irony: perfectionism often prevents excellence. When you're so afraid of mistakes you don't take action, you miss the learning that comes from feedback. Then there's intellectualization, using your intellect as a shield against emotions. While other kids learned to process feelings and navigate social dynamics, you learn to analyze and theorize. This creates cognitive empathy. You understand what others feel intellectually, but struggle to actually connect with those emotions. You can analyze a social situation perfectly, but feel exhausted after every interaction because you're constantly calculating instead of just being present. If you've ever rehearsed entire conversations in your head before parties, you know exactly what I mean. But here's the thing: emotions aren't problems to be solved. Their experiences are to be felt and processed. This leads us to trap number 4, social withdrawal and defensive arrogance. When the first 3 traps have been operating for years, you end up feeling fundamentally different from other people. You start opting out of social activities because they feel unpredictable and you might not excel. You avoid group projects because other people work differently. But here's what's happening. While everyone else was building social skills through trial and error, you were protecting your image. While they learned to be vulnerable and bonded through shared struggles, you maintained distance to avoid looking foolish. The result, you miss the experiences that create real connections. Friendship isn't built through impressive conversations. It's built through showing up consistently, being vulnerable, and sharing both successes and failures. When loneliness becomes unbearable, many former gifted kids develop what I call defensive arrogance. You tell yourself, I don't relate because they're not intellectually curious. Or most people are satisfied with superficial conversations, but I need a deeper connection. Here's the hard truth. This is rarely about intelligence. It's about fear. Fear of not being the smartest person in the room. Recent research shows adults identified as gifted children report loneliness rates 40% higher than the general population. This isn't because you're incompatible with other humans. It's because you've spent years building walls to protect an identity that has never served you. Carl Jung once wrote, "Life really begins at 40, but only if you have faced your shadow by then." But here's the good news. You don't have to wait until 40. Everything I've described, the traps, the patterns, the loneliness, none of it is permanent. It's all learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. Thousands of people have broken free from gifted kid syndrome and gone on to live fulfilling, connected, successful lives. Here's how to do it. Solution number 1. Shift your identity from being smart to being someone who grows. This isn't just a mindset change. It's a complete reframe of how you relate to challenges and failures. Instead of "I am smart," try "I am someone who learns." Instead of "this should be easy for me," try "this is an opportunity to develop new skills." Carol Dweck's research shows that students who receive growth mindset interventions improve significantly in academic performance and emotional well-being. But this isn't just about school. It's about reclaiming your relationship with difficulty. Here's a practical exercise. Set what I call ugly draft goals. These are goals where the point isn't to succeed, it's to try. Sign up for a pottery class where you'll definitely make wonky bowls. In the comments, tell me one thing you'd try if you knew you couldn't fail. I'll respond to as many as I can. The goal is to train your nervous system so that trying and failing is safe, that your worth isn't tied to your performance. Start small. Pick one area where you can practice being a beginner. Notice when perfectionism kicks in and gently redirects your focus to learning rather than performing. You might feel uncomfortable at first. Your brain has been wired to equate struggle with inadequacy for years. But every time you choose growth over protection, you're rewiring those neural pathways. You're proving to yourself that you can handle being imperfect and still be okay. Solution number 2. Shadow integration and developing emotional skills. Shadow integration isn't about eliminating parts of yourself you don't like. It's about acknowledging them, understanding them, and finding healthy ways to express them. That procrastination you judge so harshly, Maybe it's your psyche protecting you from perfectionism. That jealousy when others succeed. Maybe it's pointing toward something you actually want for yourself. Here's a practical shadow work exercise. Keep a failure journal. Every day, write down one mistake you made, one thing you didn't know, or one moment you felt stupid. But instead of judging these moments, get curious about them. You also need to develop emotional literacy, the ability to name and process feelings instead of just analyzing them. When you notice yourself intellectualizing an emotion, pause and ask, what am I actually feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? What does this emotion need from me? If you're struggling with this alone, consider therapy. CBT is excellent for perfectionism. Emotionally focused therapy helps with deeper connections. The goal isn't to become less intelligent, it's to become more whole, to develop emotional intelligence that complements your intellectual abilities. Solution number 3. Re-enter the game of life. You've been sitting on the sidelines for years, protecting your image and avoiding risk. It's time to get back in there. Here's the rule. Join one activity where the outcome is fun and connection, not performance or achievement. This could be a hiking group, improv class, book club, or hobby meetup. Key point: choose something where being a beginner is expected, and the focus is enjoying the process together. Social psychology research shows shared challenges create stronger bonds than small talk. When you struggle through learning salsa, dancing together, or laugh about terrible pottery attempts, you create vulnerable, authentic connections that have been missing from your life. You might feel awkward at first. You might want to quit when you realize you're not naturally gifted. That's exactly when you need to stay. Every time you show up despite feeling incompetent, you prove to yourself that your worth isn't tied to performance. I challenge you, pick one activity this week. Comment below what you chose. I want to celebrate your courage to be a beginner again. Solution number 4. Build what I call a growth tribe. A community of people who share their values around learning, growth, and authenticity, rather than just achievement. This might mean joining Former Gifted Kid subreddits where thousands of people work through similar patterns, Discord servers focused on learning rather than competition, local makerspaces, writing groups, and discussion meetups where curiosity is valued over credentials. Look for spaces where people share their process, not just their wins, where vulnerability is rewarded and mistakes are learning opportunities. Here's a practical tip. When you share updates with people, focus on what you're learning rather than what you've achieved. Instead of "I got promoted," try "I'm learning to manage a team and it's challenging in ways I didn't expect." This kind of sharing invites reciprocity. It permits others to be honest about their struggles and creates the foundation for genuine connection. Remember, the goal isn't to find people impressed by your intelligence. It's to find people who appreciate your humanity. Let me share 3 quick transformation stories. Sarah spent her 20s paralyzed by perfectionism, switching jobs because nothing felt worthy of her potential. She started with a pottery class where she deliberately made terrible bowls for 6 months. This led to joining a hiking group where she wasn't the fastest or most experienced. Today, successful consulting business and thriving social life. Michael was isolated and anxious, analyzing his problems instead of addressing them. He started therapy and began keeping a failure journal. He joined a board game meetup where being strategic was valued, but winning wasn't everything. 6 months later, his first healthy romantic relationship in years. Lisa was trapped in defensive arrogance, convinced she was too complex for others to understand. She started volunteering at a literacy program, teaching adults to read. Being in a helper role, where connection was the goal, helped her rediscover the joy of sharing gifts without proving worth. She's now in graduate school with a close friend group. The common thread: they stopped trying to be impressive and started trying to be real. Let's recap the 4 traps: the fixed identity label, shadow psychology, perfectionism and intellectualization, and social withdrawal disguised as superiority. And the 4 solutions: shift from smart to growth, integrate your shadow and develop emotional skills, re-enter the game through low-stakes activities, and build a growth tribe. Here's what I want you to remember: being smart was never the problem. Isolation was the problem. Perfectionism was the problem. Fear was the problem. But growth, messy, imperfect, vulnerable growth, that's the cure. You don't have to choose between being intelligent and being happy. You can be both brilliant and human, both capable and vulnerable, both successful and real. Your intelligence is a gift, but it was never meant to be a prison. It's time to unlock the door and step into the full, connected, imperfect, beautiful life you were meant to live. I want to hear from you. Comment on the word growth, plus which trap hits you hardest, and what's one small step you'll take this week to start breaking free. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to start their own journey. And before you go, I have one final request that could change everything for you. If this video helped you recognize patterns you've been struggling with for years, don't just watch and leave. Take action right now. Hit that subscribe button for the Psyche Weave. We're building a community of brilliant people who refuse to stay stuck. Every week, I break down the psychology behind why smart people struggle and give you the exact tools to transform your challenges into your greatest strengths. Your next breakthrough is waiting in the video that YouTube's about to recommend. Don't scroll away. Click on that next video. Keep this momentum going, and let's continue rewiring your relationship with growth together. The Psyche Weave community is here for you. Your intelligence was meant to be a gift, not a prison. Let's unlock it together.